lesson about being single today. There are 1,000,001 reasons why you might be single. Maybe you just got out of a serious relationship. Maybe you decided to take a break from men for a while, or women. Maybe taking a break from people is the last thing you want, and you can't imagine committing to just one. And of course, maybe you do want a relationship, but you just aren't in one right now. Whatever the reason, the point is you're single right now, and whether it's by circumstance or design, you might as well enjoy it the best you can. Because being single, at least in the way that women get to be single today, is a luxury our mothers and our grandmothers did not have. For centuries and centuries, a woman's lot in life was based on the supposition that she would get married, and the sooner the better. In the Middle Ages, a girl could live in her parents' house until the ripe old age of 14 or so, at which point her father would march her down the aisle and hand her off to a husband. The next 25 years would be spent getting pregnant, narrowly escaping death during childbirth, and picking out new tapestries for the castle great room, or whatever it was women did back then. Peasant women basically did the same thing, minus the tapestries, and plus a good 10 hours a day toiling away in fields with a baby strapped to their backs. The only exceptions to this rule, nuns and prostitutes, aka celibacy and syphilis. So yeah, the Middle Ages were pretty bleak. As the centuries went on, things for women got better, but not by much. Women in colonial America were finally able to inherit their husband's property, thus providing some of the first examples of American female autonomy. And never married women who could scrape together enough money could often manage to buy cottages where they could live relatively quiet lives and do their best to avoid anyone suspecting them of witchcraft. With the industrialization of the 19th century, single young girls were given the opportunity to leave home and earn a living in mill towns, the very first example of single life in America. Sure, they lived in all-girl boarding houses and worked an ungodly number of hours and made very little money, but they were also allowed to sneak into town for the occasional evening's entertainment, one of the very few opportunities for young women to meet men unchaperoned. Unfortunately, birth control at this point was still ages away, so the single life was pretty finite. To be a happy single woman, you needed to be rich, and if you weren't born rich, it was very hard to make your own money. So the single woman continued to unhappily exist until the 20th century, which is when things suddenly, miraculously took a turn for the better. First, the car was invented, and what's more, women were allowed to drive. Instantly, women had more autonomy, the ability to leave the house, to get a job, and best of all, to meet men unchaperoned. Is it any wonder that the sexually promiscuous flapper of the 1920s coincided perfectly with the sudden mass popularization of the automobile? Women have always been sexual creatures. It was just a matter of getting a moment alone with a guy outside of the damn parlor. Suddenly, women were smoking, drinking, dancing, and having sex, the germination of single life as we know it. But birth control was still dicey, and women hadn't entered the workforce yet, and they still got married ASAP. If a girl was dating a guy she mostly got along with, and they were both of a certain age, say 19, they would probably get married because that's just what you did. And then, boom, the 60s happened, and everything exploded. The most important development, of course, was the birth control pill, that miraculous little thing that lets you swallow that miraculous little thing that you swallow painlessly in the morning to have worry-free sex all month, or relatively worry-free. The other important development was the rise of the career girl, a woman who entered the workforce not because she had to support her family or help with the war effort, but because she wanted to. And when a woman got a job, she often got money and her own apartment with no one to look after but herself. So naturally, women started to realize, wait a minute, if I can have sex outside of marriage and support myself outside of marriage, then what is the big rush? And for the first time in history, there really wasn't a rush, biological or financial, to get married. Was the 60s single woman free of stigma? Of course not, but it was a start. Which brings us to today. Women today get to enjoy all the perks of the sexual revolution and feminism with the added advantage of the 50 or so years over which they've sunk in. Society is used to the single woman by now. However you may feel about your singleness, no one's going to give you a dirty look for buying condoms or signing a lease on your own or booking a vacation for one. All the things that you enjoy or appreciate about being single, absolute control over the TV, coming and going wherever you please, making decisions based on your desires alone, the excitement of going out and meeting new people, the lack of responsibility for just a little while longer, These are all things that your grandmother probably didn't have the opportunity to choose for herself. And as you no doubt know, being single doesn't mean being lonely. You may joke about becoming a cat lady, but you're probably not spending your Saturday nights knitting. You've got friends, you've got interests, you've got hobbies, you've got every opportunity to pursue them. Is being single amazing all the time? Definitely not. But then again, as your coupled up friends can tell you, neither is being in a relationship. This is not to say that it's bad to want to not be single. It's okay to want a boyfriend, to want to get married, and to want it to happen sooner rather than later. And maybe every once in a while you do get a little lonely. That's normal. You don't have to want to be single forever, but as long as you are, you might as well enjoy it while you can. Someday you might stop being single, and if all goes well, who knows? You might never have the opportunity to be on your own again. So seriously, live it up while you can. Your great-grandmothers would have wanted you to.